I decided to be a nurse when I was probably about 16 years old, purely because I used to love things like casualty. And I remember saying to my mother, who was a nurse herself, that's something I'd really like to do, but I don't want to do the nursing that you did, because she was a ward sister and then she was a health visitor. I want to do the accident and emergency kind of stuff. I really like, the blood and gore that goes with it. And she said, well, why don't you do that then? So I thought, okay, well, don't I have to have A-levels in biology and physics and chemistry? And back then you didn't have to do that. You just had to have I think it was 5 GCSEs. I started my nurse training in 1994 and graduated in 1997. Why I decided to become a military nurse is mainly because I was an air cadet from when I was about 14 years old until I was 18, and I loved the uniform I put on. I loved the fact that we had to go on parade and polish our shoes for inspection nights. And I loved the camaraderie of being an air cadet. I think it was just absolutely fantastic. So then I thought I'll put the two together, put the air cadets and the nursing bit together, and become a Royal Air Force nursing officer, which is what I did. I did my student nurse training at Homerton College in Cambridgeshire, where I spent 3 years. I then did a year at Addenbrooke's Hospital, and then I moved to Milton Keynes General Hospital for 2 years. This is where I did my accident and emergency nursing course, which used to be called the English National Board 199 course for our A&E colleagues out there. And then I stayed there for another couple of years and applied to join the Princess Mary's Royal Air Force Nursing Service in 2002. So I've got a bit of experience of being a civilian nurse as well as being a military nurse. And to be honest, because most of our military work is conducted with the NHS even now, the differences, are very much alike. We are there to look after our patients. We are there to do the best for our patients, whether they wear uniform or whether they are civilians. The differences being in the Royal Air Force Nursing Service is the fact that we do a lot of aeromed evacuation. So one of my first tours as a flight commander was that of being an aeromed evacuation nurse. So I was able to fly around the world, to the Falklands, to Ascension Island, Cyprus, Bosnia, Kosovo, so many places, to be able to pick up those casualties that had been injured, whether it be ship or whether it be on land, or had it been a RAF soldier that had hurt themselves, and then bring them back to the UK for repatriation. So I've done 8 operational tours. My very first operational tour was in Iraq, and I was the aeromedical evacuation liaison officer, so evacuating any soldier, aviator or sailor that had been injured in Iraq and making sure that they were flown back home in a timely fashion with medical escorts back to the UK. I then returned back to Iraq about 6 months later for a further tour, and then a couple of years later I did my very first tour to Afghanistan. That was the tour that I first met Mark Omrod, and I was doing the medical emergency response teams, which were the basically 4 medical personnel on the back of a Chinook aircraft flying out to the battlefield to evacuate casualties and bringing them back to the hospital at Camp Bastion. That was my very first tour in Afghanistan, and I then did another 5 tours on top of that. So I did 6 tours of Afghanistan doing the same job, which definitely took its toll. It was very emotional seeing young soldiers with such significant injuries, such as Mark's. I think some of the highlights of being a nurse in the RAF is the immense pride I have of putting my uniform on. The camaraderie that I've had while being in the military has just been amazing. It's just like having a second family. you experience so many experiences, you know, from good things and bad things, but having those fantastic colleagues that, you know, that I worked with over the years has just been absolutely incredible. I know that I wouldn't be sitting here today being able to talk about, you know, my story if it hadn't been for such amazing colleagues, you know, to be able to get through those dark times as well as the good times. Some of the lows of being in the military is obviously, and in Afghan in particular, you know, you're away from your family, your friends. Communication was very, very limited. You know, you don't have mobile phones. You know, people couldn't get hold of you if they needed to. But also knowing the fact that the job that I was doing on the back of the helicopter, we could be shot down at any moment. The enemy forces took great efforts to try and shoot us down, knowing the fact that as soon as one of our soldiers got injured, that we wouldn't be far behind. So they would have plenty of time to be able to line up their ammunition and to get that headline story of, you know, medical aircraft shot down, knowing the fact that that kind of knowledge would have huge impact back here in the UK with the general public, knowing that you know, people are dying and, you know, the enemy forces just didn't care. Nursing on the back of a helicopter to a lot of people seems, oh wow, gosh, that sounds great fun. You must have really enjoyed it. It sounds really Gucci. However, the realities were that you were wearing 20 kilograms of kit, and that's, you know, with your body armour. You had to carry a weapon. You had to obviously carry water, all of your medical equipment. The aircraft itself was very, very noisy. You couldn't hear yourself think. The communication with your team was very, very difficult. The aircraft, obviously, you know, it would fly along like this. So, you know, there'd be a lot of occasions where a lot of people, you know, would feel quite ill doing the job as well. And especially when you've got a casualty in front of you, you know, you need to be focused 100%. So you have to put your own needs aside. But also, you know, people forget the fact that you're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There was no time for respite. You missed lots of meals, you know, you would always be hungry, you'd be thirsty. And the temperatures of Afghanistan also were very extreme. It was 40 degrees heat in the summer, if not more, and then really cold in the winter. And the dust on the back of the helicopter as well. It was a very difficult, strenuously and emotional job to do. The legacies set by Florence Nightingale and Mary Seacole, I mean, first of all, you know, they are inspirational leaders. And I think, you know, going back to their experiences, back in a time where the world was dominated by men, that these two women were able to stand up and make such a huge difference, regardless of the fact that they were women, regardless of their skin colour, regardless of you know, their determination, what they were able to achieve. To set legacies like that is just absolutely inspiring, and it has certainly inspired me throughout my 23 years of being in the Princess Mary's Royal Air Force Nursing Service.